when my brother poured rocks in a teacher's gas tank. At age 9, my mom told the school it was me because she needed one angel child to brag about. For the next 10 years, everything Nathan did got blamed on me, including when he was accused of assaulting a girl at a party. Then my dad found out. Nathan had been using mom's work computer to run anonymous accounts destroying my life, and their whole digital trail of framing me led to both of them being sentenced to prison. The incident happened when I was only 7 years old and my brother Nathan was only 9. Every day for a straight week, he poured rocks into a teacher's gas tank, but he didn't know the consequences. He thought it was funny. But my mom got a phone call from the principal because someone caught him doing it. This left her with two options. 1, admit that Nathan was doing it, or 2, tell them that I did it since him and I look alike. Guess what she did? I was 7 and my older brother Nathan was 9 when the incident happened. He had poured rocks into a teacher's gas tank every day for weeks straight, not knowing it was wrong. It wasn't until someone caught him doing it that my mom got the phone call from the principal. At that moment, she had two options. 1, to tell them it really was Nathan, or 2, tell them it was all me. We look extremely alike. She told them it was me because to my mom, she needed at least one angel child to brag about. And because I was naturally more mischievous than Nathan, she picked him to fill the role. I ended up getting suspended, and every teacher in the school would pick on me. It was then that Nathan realized he could get away with literally anything and acted like it too. When I was 11, Nathan stole $20 from my mom's wallet. My mom didn't even ask if it was me, just sold my gaming console as punishment. But Nathan's antics only got worse from there. I was 14 when I got my first girlfriend. Nathan was 16 and also had a girlfriend. So one day, when my girlfriend saw the back of Nathan's head kissing another girl, she recorded it and sent it to almost every group chat in the school. His phone was flooded with hate texts, anonymous threats. But instead of owning up and taking a beating, he told everyone it was me. And because everyone in high school were drama fiends, everyone automatically believed him, including my mother. And since our family is very anti-cheating, practically all of my relatives stopped talking to me. I stopped trying to have a social life after that. I figured if I just kept my head down until I moved out for college, everything would be okay. But as you can probably guess, my plan failed. Because when I was in 11th grade, a rumor about Nathan was going around the school. Apparently, he had R-worded a girl at some party who woke up in bed beside him with no recollection of what had happened. I had no idea if it was true or not, but the more I listened to everyone's stories, the more things were adding up. I began to hatch a plan to make him confess, but my plans were interrupted. Because a week after the rumors were born, people were threatening to hit me up after school. Eggs were thrown at me as I walked home. It wasn't until one guy threw a punch during lunchtime that I realized what was going on. Nathan had somehow convinced everyone it was me. I went home early that day, not knowing what the F to do. I remember living with so much fear. I didn't even want to leave the house. But when the weekend came, things took a dark turn. I got a notification that I was tagged in a post on Instagram. But when I clicked it, my heart dropped. The account was anonymous, but was followed by nearly everyone in school. The caption was my home address, phone number, email, all followed by an in-depth description of who I had violated and just how I had done it. I almost threw up with stress. My hands and feet were ice cold. I tried to scroll through my WhatsApp to see if there was anyone I could reach out to, but there was only one. The only person who didn't blame me for Nathan cheating on his girlfriend, my dad. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 10 years, but when I called, the first thing he asked was if I wanted to come over, and he'd pay for the Uber. I breathed a sigh of relief and left immediately. On the way there, I passed by 4 Toyota Corollas filled with angry 18-year-olds, all heading towards my house. Luckily, they didn't see me, and I knew I would be staying at my dad's for a while. When I got there, he didn't even ask why I had reached out. He just gave me a big hug and played Polar Express on the TV, my favorite Christmas movie from when I was 5. But the second Tom Hanks started narrating, I burst into tears. Tears soon turned into hyperventilation, and within 2 minutes, I was having a full-blown anxiety attack. I couldn't even speak, and just showed him the Instagram post. Son, I know you wouldn't do that, he said. It was the first time someone had seen the good in me. I immediately calmed down, and he continued speaking. Apparently, my mom had always treated Nathan a lot better, and my dad always tried to stand up for me. But things quickly escalated, and whenever my dad would defend me, my mom would get violent, which was the reason for their divorce. I told him my mom said he used to hit her, which is why I never reached out. He just nodded, but the look in his eyes told me he understood and forgave me. It was the most love I had been shown in my life, so I started crying again. My dad assured me not to worry because he would handle everything, and I was in safe hands. I smiled, because back then, I didn't understand the weight of his words. I didn't know just how seriously he had meant them. He protected me so well that I didn't find out what he had done to Nathan and my mom until it was too late to be undone. The next morning, I woke up to find my dad already in the kitchen making pancakes. The smell of butter and syrup filled the small apartment, bringing back memories of weekend mornings before the divorce. He slid a plate in front of me without asking if I was hungry. I picked at the edges, my stomach still twisted from yesterday's events. My phone buzzed on the counter. Another notification, then another, and another. My dad reached over and turned it face down. He poured himself coffee and sat across from me, studying my face with concern. I could see him working through something in his mind, weighing options. After breakfast, he disappeared into his home office for nearly an hour. I heard him on the phone, his voice low and serious. When he emerged, he had a yellow legal pad covered in notes. He sat down beside me on the couch and explained he'd been making calls to some old contacts, people who might be able to help with the situation. The first person to arrive was Catherine, a family friend I vaguely remembered from when I was younger. She worked in IT security and brought a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. My dad introduced us again, and she gave me a warm smile before getting straight to business. She asked to see the Instagram post and any other online harassment I'd received. I handed over my phone reluctantly. Catherine's fingers flew across the screen, taking screenshots and making notes. She connected my phone to her laptop and started running some kind of program. Within minutes, she traced the anonymous account back to an IP address. The look she gave my dad told me everything I needed to know. It was Nathan. My dad's jaw tightened. He thanked Catherine and walked her to the door. When he returned, he pulled out his phone and started scrolling through his contacts again. This time, he called someone named Sebastian, apparently an old college friend who now worked as a private investigator. Sebastian arrived that afternoon in a nondescript sedan. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. My dad briefed him on the situation while I sat quietly in the corner. Sebastian asked detailed questions about Nathan's habits, his friends, the party where the alleged incident occurred. Over the next few days, a pattern emerged. My dad would make calls in the morning, people would visit throughout the day, and by evening he'd have more notes on his legal pad. I caught glimpses of the pages, names, dates, connections drawn between different events. He was building something, though I couldn't quite understand what. One afternoon, while my dad was out meeting with someone, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my dad's car parked outside a law firm downtown. The message read, "Your daddy can't protect you forever." My hands shook as I deleted it. When my dad returned, I didn't tell him about the message. Something in his expression stopped me, a grim determination I'd never seen before. He'd aged in the days since I'd arrived, dark circles under his eyes from late nights spent planning. That evening, Sebastian called with news. He'd tracked down the girl from the party. She was willing to talk, but only to my dad, not to police. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop the next morning. I begged to go along, but my dad refused. This was adult business, he said. While he was gone, I paced the apartment like a caged animal. My phone continued buzzing with threats and accusations. Each notification felt like a punch to the gut. I turned it off completely and tried to watch TV, but couldn't focus on anything. My dad returned looking troubled. The girl's story matched the rumors, but she was terrified of coming forward officially. Her parents didn't know, and she couldn't bear the thought of a public trial. My dad had recorded their conversation with her permission, but without her testimony, it might not be enough. That night, I overheard my dad on the phone with my mom. Even from my bedroom, I could hear her shrill voice through the speaker. She was screaming about harassment, about how dare he investigate her perfect son. My dad's responses were calm, measured. He told her he knew about the Instagram account, about the years of scapegoating, about everything. The call ended with her hanging up on him. The next few days blurred together. More people came and went from the apartment. I recognized a few. Teachers from my school, parents of classmates, even the principal who'd suspended me all those years ago for the gas tank incident. Each left looking shaken, clutching folders my dad had prepared. One evening, Catherine returned with printed screenshots and data logs. Something feels off about how quickly the dad's building this whole network of helpers. Catherine just happens to trace that Instagram account right away, and now Sebastian's got the actual girl from the party talking. She'd found more than just the Instagram account. Nathan had been systematically destroying my reputation online for years, creating fake profiles, spreading rumors, manipulating photos. The evidence was overwhelming. My dad spent hours organizing everything into a comprehensive file. Photos, testimonies, digital evidence, character statements. He worked with the focus of a man possessed, barely sleeping or eating. I tried to help, but he insisted I focus on my schoolwork, maintaining some sense of normalcy. A week into my stay, Nathan showed up at the apartment building. I saw him from the window, pacing outside, phone pressed to his ear. My dad noticed too and made a quick call. Within minutes, Sebastian's sedan pulled up. Nathan saw him, seemed to recognize him, and quickly left. That night, my dad sat me down for a serious conversation. He explained that he'd been building a case, not for court, but for something more effective. He'd gathered enough evidence to destroy Nathan's reputation completely, the same way Nathan had tried to destroy mine. But he wanted my permission before moving forward. I thought about all the years of blame, the isolation, the fear. Part of me wanted Nathan to suffer like I had, but another part just wanted it to be over. I told my dad I trusted his judgment. The next morning, my dad made several phone calls. By afternoon, things started happening. The anonymous Instagram account disappeared. The threat stopped. My phone went quiet for the first time in days. It was eerie, like the calm before a storm. My mom called that evening, her voice different, smaller, uncertain. She asked to speak to me, but my dad took the phone into another room. I could hear his voice, firm but not unkind, laying out terms. When he returned, he simply said things were being handled. I spent the rest of that evening watching my dad work. He moved with purpose, making notes on his legal pad, cross-referencing dates and times. Every so often, he would pause and look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride mixed with regret, maybe, or determination tinged with sadness. Around midnight, he finally set down his pen and rubbed his eyes. He told me to get some sleep, that tomorrow would be a big day. I went to bed but lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and wondering what he had planned. The sound of voices woke me early. Through my bedroom door, I could hear my dad talking to someone in the living room. I crept closer and recognized Sebastian's voice. They were discussing strategy, something about timing and coordination. I pressed my ear against the door but could only catch fragments. When I finally emerged, Sebastian was gone. My dad was at the kitchen table, surrounded by manila folders and printed emails. He looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He made me breakfast while explaining that he'd arranged a meeting with my school's administration. Not just the principal, but the superintendent and several board members. I felt my stomach drop. The last thing I wanted was more attention on this situation. But my dad assured me I wouldn't have to say anything. He just needed me there, present and visible. A reminder of the real person behind all the lies. We arrived at the school district office an hour before classes started. The building was mostly empty, just a few early arriving staff members who gave us curious looks. My dad carried a thick briefcase and walked with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The meeting room was already occupied when we entered. 5 people sat around a long table, coffee cups and notepads in front of them. I recognized the principal immediately. His face went pale when he saw me. The others introduced themselves as various district officials. My dad opened his briefcase and began laying out documents. Catherine's digital forensics report, screenshots of the fake accounts, a timeline showing every incident where I'd been blamed for Nathan's actions, starting with the gas tank incident 10 years ago. The room grew increasingly quiet as he presented each piece of evidence. One of the board members, an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun, kept shaking her head as she read through the materials. She asked how long this had been going on. My dad's answer was simple and devastating. Since I was 7 years old, the principal tried to defend himself, claiming he'd had no way of knowing the truth. My dad pulled out another folder. Inside were witness statements from teachers who'd seen Nathan near the parking lot during the week of the gas tank incident. Teachers who'd remained silent when I was punished. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, the district officials were whispering among themselves, clearly shaken. They promised to review everything and take appropriate action. My dad thanked them politely, but made it clear this was just the beginning. As we walked back to the car, I noticed my hands were shaking. The reality of what was happening started to sink in. My dad was systematically dismantling the narrative Nathan and my mom had built over the past decade. We drove home in silence. I wanted to ask what would happen next, but something in my dad's expression told me to wait. Back at the apartment, he made us lunch and suggested I try to relax. Easy for him to say. That afternoon, my phone started buzzing again, but this time, the messages were different. Classmates were asking if I was okay. Some apologized for believing the rumors. Others shared their own suspicions about Nathan. The tide was beginning to turn. Around 3 o'clock, Catherine arrived with her laptop. She showed us how the anonymous Instagram account had been deleted, but not before she'd archived everything. Every post, every comment, every piece of metadata that pointed back to Nathan. She'd also found something else. Nathan had been using our mom's credit card to pay for premium features on the fake social media accounts. My dad's expression darkened at this revelation. He excused himself and made another phone call. I could hear him pacing in his bedroom, voice low and intense. When he returned, he simply said that our mom would be receiving some visitors soon. The rest of the week passed in a blur of meetings and revelations. Sebastian had been busy interviewing people from the party where the alleged assault occurred. Several witnesses came forward with disturbing details about Nathan's behavior that night. How he'd isolated the girl. How he'd been seen adding something to her drink. One afternoon, while my dad was meeting with Sebastian, I decided to check my social media. The fake accounts were gone, but the damage remained. Old posts where people had attacked me, believed the lies, spread the rumors. I started to delete my accounts entirely when my dad stopped me. He said we needed to preserve everything as evidence. That evening, we had an unexpected visitor. My mom stood at the apartment door, her face a mask of fury. My dad stepped between us, keeping her in the hallway. She demanded to know what he thought he was doing, destroying her family, ruining Nathan's future. My dad's response was measured. He told her she'd had 10 years to protect both her sons. She'd chosen to protect only one. The confrontation escalated quickly. My mom's voice grew shrill as she accused my dad of manipulation, of turning me against her. She said Nathan was just a child who'd made mistakes. My dad pulled out his phone and played a recording. Catherine had recovered deleted messages where Nathan bragged about setting me up, about how easy it was to fool everyone. My mom's face went white. She tried to grab the phone, but my dad stepped back. He told her this was just one recording of dozens, that every scheme, every lie, every cruel manipulation had left a digital trail, and Catherine had found them all. She left without another word, but I could see the fear in her eyes. For the first time in my life, she was the one who would face consequences. The next few days brought more revelations. Sebastian discovered that Nathan had been bragging to his friends about his ability to pin things on me. Several of them had saved text messages where he detailed his plans. One friend had even warned him it would catch up eventually. Nathan had laughed it off. My dad compiled everything into organized packets, one for the school district, one for the police, one for social services, and one special package that he kept locked in his briefcase. When I asked about it, he just said it was insurance. A week after the school meeting, we received word that the district was conducting a formal investigation. Several teachers were being questioned about their role in perpetuating the false narrative about me. The principal had been placed on administrative leave pending review. Nathan tried to contact me directly, sending messages from new numbers, creating new social media accounts. Each attempt was documented and added to the growing pile of evidence. His messages ranged from threats to pleas to attempts at manipulation. Classic Nathan, cycling through every tactic he knew. My dad hired a family lawyer, a woman named Patricia, who specialized in cases involving sibling abuse and parental neglect. She reviewed all the evidence and told us we had grounds for several legal actions. But my dad wanted to try one more approach first. He arranged a meeting with our entire extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, people who'd cut me off after believing Nathan's lies about the cheating incident. The meeting was held at my grandmother's house, neutral territory. My dad presented everything methodically. The timeline, the evidence, the pattern of abuse that had started when I was 7 years old. He showed them messages where Nathan had laughed about fooling them all, where he'd called them idiots for believing his stories. The room was silent, except for my aunt crying softly. Dad's playing chess while everyone else thought this was checkers, building a case so solid it makes courthouses jealous. Catherine's digital detective work just turned Nathan's own bragging into his biggest mistake. She'd been particularly harsh in cutting me off, had said things that still hurt to remember. Now she couldn't even look at me. My grandfather, a stern man who valued truth above all else, read through every document twice. His hands shook with anger. By the end of the meeting, the family dynamics had completely shifted. Those who had shunned me now turned their backs on Nathan and my mom. It wasn't satisfying exactly. More like watching a house of cards finally collapse after years of precarious balance. Nathan's response was swift and desperate. He showed up at my dad's apartment building again, this time with our mom. They buzzed the intercom repeatedly, demanding to be let in. When that didn't work, they waited by the entrance, confronting other residents, making a scene. My dad called building security, who asked them to leave. They refused. The security guard called the police. I watched from the window as 2 officers arrived and spoke with Nathan and our mom. Whatever story they tried to spin didn't work. The officers made them leave with a warning about trespassing. That night, my dad sat me down for another serious conversation. He explained that things were about to escalate. Nathan and our mom were cornered animals now, and cornered animals were dangerous. He'd arranged for increased security at the building and wanted me to be extra careful when going anywhere. The next morning brought a new development. The girl from the party had decided to file a formal complaint with the police. Sebastian had connected her with a victim's advocate who'd helped her find the courage to come forward. Her statement, combined with the witness accounts and digital evidence, painted a damning picture. Nathan was brought in for questioning that afternoon. My mom tried to interfere, showing up at the at the police station and causing a scene. She accused everyone of conspiring against her son, of ruining an innocent young man's life. The desk sergeant threatened to arrest her for obstruction if she didn't calm down. While Nathan was being questioned, my dad received a call from Patricia, our lawyer. She'd been contacted by Nathan's lawyer, proposing a deal. If we dropped everything, Nathan would publicly admit to creating the fake social media accounts and spreading false rumors about me. He would clear my name completely. My dad asked what I thought. The offer was tempting. It would give me what I'd wanted most, my reputation back. But it would also let Nathan escape real consequences for everything else he'd done, including what happened to that girl at the party. I thought about all the years of torment, the isolation, the fear, the constant anxiety of never knowing what Nathan would blame on me next. And I thought about that girl, waking up confused and scared, not knowing what had happened to her. The decision was easy. We rejected the deal. Nathan's lawyer tried to negotiate, offering money, offering public apologies, offering anything to make this go away. My dad's response was firm. Nathan had had 10 years to apologize. That window had closed. The investigation intensified. More victims came forward. It turned out the girl from the party wasn't the first. Nathan had a pattern of behavior that several young women recognized once they heard the stories. Each one had stayed quiet out of fear or shame or because they thought no one would believe them. My mom's complicity became clearer as the investigation progressed. She'd known about Nathan's behavior and had actively covered for him. She'd moved money to help him maintain his fake accounts. She lied to school officials, to family members, to anyone who might have discovered the truth. One evening, while reviewing documents with my dad, I found something that made my blood run cold. An email exchange between my mom and Nathan from 2 years ago. She was coaching him on how to frame me for the cheating incident, suggesting which photos to use, which people to tell first for maximum impact. It was calculated and cruel. My dad saw my face and gently took the papers from my hands. He reminded me that this wasn't my fault, that I'd survived something no child should have to endure, that the truth was finally coming out. The school district completed their investigation and issued a formal apology. Several teachers were disciplined for their role in perpetuating the bias against me. The principal was terminated. A new policy was implemented requiring more thorough investigation of student complaints. But the real bombshell came when Catherine discovered something in the metadata of the anonymous Instagram posts. The IP addresses didn't just lead back to Nathan. Some of them traced to computers at our mom's workplace. She'd been posting defamatory content about me while at her job. My dad forwarded this information to her employer. Within days, she was suspended pending an investigation into misuse of company resources. The workplace IT department found more evidence of her using work computers to cyberbully her own son. Nathan's situation grew increasingly dire. The police investigation expanded as more evidence surfaced. His lawyer advised him to consider a plea deal, but Nathan refused. He was convinced he could talk his way out of it, just like he always had. My dad continued building his cases methodically. He worked with Patricia to file a civil suit against my mom for emotional abuse and defamation. He supported the criminal case against Nathan. He even began proceedings to retroactively challenge the custody arrangement from the divorce, arguing that my mom had been unfit all along. Through it all, I struggled with conflicting emotions. Relief that the truth was finally out, anger at the years stolen from me, sadness for the family I'd never really had, fear about what would happen next. My dad found me a therapist who specialized in family trauma, and slowly, I began to process everything. One afternoon, my grandmother called. She wanted to see me, to apologize in person for believing Nathan's lies. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown. She looked older than I remembered, worn down by the revelations of the past few weeks. She told me about signs she'd ignored over the years, how Nathan had always been too smooth, too quick with explanations, how my mom had always been too defensive of him. She apologized for failing me, for choosing the easy belief over the difficult truth. I accepted her apology, but made it clear that rebuilding trust would take time. She understood and promised to be patient. It was a start, at least. Meanwhile, Nathan's world continued to crumble. His friends distanced themselves as more details emerged. His girlfriend left him. His college acceptance was under review. The life he'd built on lies was falling apart piece by piece. He made one last desperate attempt to salvage things. He posted a long message on social media, claiming he was the real victim, that I'd always been jealous of him, that our dad was manipulating me, that the girls were lying for attention. It was a masterclass in deflection and gaslighting, but it backfired spectacularly. Catherine had been monitoring his online activity and immediately screenshot everything. The post was deleted within hours, but the damage was done. Even his last remaining supporters couldn't defend such obvious lies. My mom tried a similar tactic, reaching out to extended family with her version of events. She painted herself as a protective mother caught between two sons. She claimed my dad had poisoned me against her. She even suggested that the evidence had been fabricated. No one believed her. The evidence was too overwhelming, the pattern too clear. Years of enabling and participating in Nathan's abuse couldn't be explained away. Her own family began to distance themselves from her. As the weeks passed, illegal proceedings moved forward. Nathan was formally charged with multiple counts. My mom faced both criminal charges for cyber harassment and a civil suit. The family lawyer she hired dropped her case after reviewing the evidence. My dad never gloated about any of it. He took no pleasure in their downfall. This had always been about protecting me and getting justice, not revenge. He reminded me often that the best revenge was living well. I started to rebuild my life slowly. The school arranged for me to complete my coursework from home while things settled down. I began reaching out to old friends who distanced themselves, explaining the truth. Some relationships could be salvaged, others were too damaged. The therapy helped enormously. I learned to recognize the impact of years of gaslighting and scapegoating. I developed strategies for dealing with anxiety and trust issues. Most importantly, I learned that none of it had been my fault. My dad and I grew closer through the ordeal. We talked about the years we'd lost, the relationship stolen by my mom's lies. He showed me photos from before the divorce, when he'd fought to protect me. Court documents where he tried to get custody. Evidence of my mom's manipulation that had kept us apart. One evening, as we sat watching a movie, he apologized for not fighting harder, for letting the system fail me. I told him he was fighting now, and that was what mattered. We both cried, grieving for the childhood I'd lost, and the father-son relationship we were only now building. The preliminary hearings began, and the evidence was presented in court. Nathan's lawyer tried various defense strategies, but each one crumbled under the weight of proof. The digital trail Catherine had uncovered was particularly damning. Every lie, every scheme, every cruel manipulation preserved forever in metadata and screenshots. My mom's defense was even weaker. Her lawyer argued that she'd been trying to protect Nathan, that any mother would do the same, but the evidence showed deliberate participation in the abuse. She hadn't just enabled Nathan, she'd been his active accomplice. How did Catherine find all those hidden details in the computer data, like IP addresses and metadata? That takes real skill to track someone through all those digital breadcrumbs. I wonder if she learned that herself, or if that's her job. As the legal proceedings continued, I focused on healing and moving forward. I started making plans for college, somewhere far from all of this. My dad helped me research schools, look into scholarships, imagine a future free from Nathan's shadow. The community's response was mixed, but mostly supportive. Many people reached out with apologies and encouragement. Some shared their own stories of family abuse and survival. I realized I wasn't alone in this experience, that many people had survived similar situations. Nathan made one final attempt to contact me directly, slipping a letter under my dad's apartment door. In it, he blamed me for ruining his life. He said I should have just accepted my role in the family, that fighting back had destroyed everything. It was the closest he'd ever come to admitting what he'd done, even if he still couldn't take responsibility. I showed the letter to my dad and my lawyer. It was added to the evidence pile, another example of Nathan's inability to understand the harm he caused. Even facing serious consequences, he saw himself as the victim. My mom's workplace completed their investigation and terminated her employment. The combination of misusing company resources and the nature of what she'd used them for made her position untenable. She tried to file for unemployment, but was denied due to the circumstances of her termination. The financial pressure added to her desperation. She reached out to my dad, begging him to drop the civil suit. She claimed poverty, said she'd lose her house. My dad reminded her that I'd lost my childhood, my reputation, my sense of safety. The house seemed like a small price in comparison. As winter approached, the criminal cases moved toward trial. Nathan's lawyer finally convinced him to consider a plea deal as the evidence mounted. The prosecution had a strong case, and going to trial risked a much harsher sentence. My mom's case was more complex. Her lawyer argued for a separation of charges, trying to minimize her involvement, but the prosecution successfully showed a pattern of conspiracy between her and Nathan. They would be tried together. Through all of this, I continued therapy and slowly rebuilt my sense of self. I learned to trust my own perceptions again, to believe my own memories. The gaslighting had run so deep that I doubted my own experiences. Now, validated by evidence and supported by my dad, I could finally trust myself. The extended family continued to grapple with the revelations. Some relatives reached out with genuine apologies and attempts to reconnect. Others remained distant distant, unable to process how wrong they'd been. I learned to accept both responses, focusing on relationships that could be rebuilt rather than mourning those that couldn't. My dad's insurance package finally made sense when Nathan and my mom's assets were frozen pending the civil suit. He'd anticipated they might try to hide money or transfer property. His documentation ensured that any attempt to avoid financial responsibility would be caught. As the trial date approached, the pressure on Nathan and my mom intensified. Their lawyers met with prosecutors repeatedly, trying to negotiate better deals. But the evidence was so comprehensive, the pattern of abuse so clear, that there was little room for leniency. I prepared myself for the possibility of testifying, working with the prosecutor to understand what would be required. The thought terrified me, but I was ready to face them in court if necessary. To speak the truth they'd tried so hard to bury. My dad arranged for additional security measures as the trial approached. There had been some concerning incidents, hang-up calls, someone following us in a car, strange messages left at the apartment building, nothing overtly threatening, but enough to warrant caution. The school year was ending, and I made the decision to complete my senior year through an alternative program. Returning to the same building where I'd been tormented for years felt impossible. The district supported this decision and arranged for me to graduate with full honors. Nathan's friends began reaching out to the prosecutor with additional information. Years of problematic behavior they'd ignored or laughed off now seemed sinister in light of the charges. Several admitted they'd suspected something was wrong, but hadn't wanted to get involved. My mom made one last attempt to manipulate the situation. She reached out to a distant relative who worked in media, trying to spin the story as a father turning children against their mother. But when the relative fact-checked her claims, the truth quickly emerged. Instead of helping her, they distanced themselves further. The final pre-trial hearing arrived with both Nathan and my mom looking haggard. The months of pressure had taken their toll. Their united front had cracked, with each beginning to blame the other. Nathan claimed our mom had encouraged his behavior. She insisted she'd only been protecting him. The judge reviewed the evidence and denied most of their motions to dismiss or reduce charges. The trial would proceed as scheduled. Both defendants were reminded of their bail conditions and warned against any contact with witnesses. As we left the courthouse, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Vindication that the truth was finally being recognized, exhaustion from the months of stress, sadness for the family that could have been. But mostly, I felt free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, the constant fear of what Nathan would do next. My dad put his arm around my shoulders as we walked to the car. He reminded me that whatever happened at trial, we'd already won the most important battle. The truth was out. I was safe, and we'd found our way back to each other. The road ahead was still uncertain. Trials could go any direction. Nathan and my mom might still find ways to avoid full accountability, but for the first time in my life, I faced that uncertainty without fear. I had truth on my side, evidence to back it up, and a father who would fight for me. As we drove home, I thought about the 7-year-old boy who'd been blamed for his brother's vandalism, the 11-year-old who lost his gaming console for a theft he didn't commit, the 14-year-old whose reputation was destroyed by lies. That boy had survived it all and was finally getting justice. The apartment felt different now. What had started as a refuge had become a home. My dad had cleared out his office to make a proper bedroom for me. We'd established routines, inside jokes, the comfortable rhythm of family life. It was everything I'd missed during those lost years. That evening, as we prepared dinner together, my dad told me he was proud of my courage, not just in recent months, but through all the years of abuse. I'd survived what no child should endure and come through with my integrity intact. Nathan had tried to break me, but I'd bent without breaking. The trial was set to begin in 3 weeks. Whatever happened, I knew I could face it. The scared boy who'd fled to his father's apartment was gone. In his place stood someone who knew his own strength, who could speak his truth without fear. The morning of the trial arrived with a cold snap that made my bones ache. My dad and I ate breakfast in silence, both lost in our own thoughts. He laid out my clothes the night before, a simple button-down and slacks that made me look older than my years. As we prepared to leave, he squeezed my shoulder and reminded me that no matter what happened today, we'd already won by bringing the truth to light. The courthouse loomed before us, all concrete and glass reflecting the gray winter sky. Patricia met us at the entrance, her briefcase bulging with documents. She walked us through what to expect, how the proceedings would unfold. I nodded along but barely heard her words over the pounding of my heart. Inside, the hallways buzzed with activity. Lawyers hurried past with armloads of files, families huddled in corners, speaking in hushed tones. I caught sight of Nathan being led to a conference room by his lawyer. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Our eyes met for a brief moment before he turned away. My mom arrived separately, flanked by her new lawyer, the third one she'd hired after the others had dropped her case. She wore a conservative dress I'd never seen before, clearly trying to project an image of maternal respectability. The facade cracked when she saw me. Her face contorted with something between rage and despair before her lawyer steered her away. The courtroom itself was smaller than I'd imagined, wood paneling and uncomfortable benches. The judge's bench dominated the front, American flag hanging limply beside it. Patricia guided us to our seats behind the prosecutor's table. My dad sat close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, a small comfort in the sterile room. As people filed in, I recognized faces from the past months. Catherine took a seat in the gallery, giving me an encouraging nod. Sebastian sat a few rows back, notebook already out. Several of my relatives had come, including my grandmother, who looked frail but determined. Even some of Nathan's former friends were present, subpoenaed as witnesses. The judge entered and everyone rose. She was younger than I'd expected, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. As she called the court to order, I felt the weight of the moment settle over me. Years of lies and manipulation had led to this point. The prosecutor opened with a methodical presentation of the evidence. She walked the jury through the timeline, starting with the gas tank incident when I was 7. Each subsequent event built upon the last, creating a clear pattern of abuse and enabling. The digital evidence Catherine had uncovered featured prominently, projected on screens for everyone to see. Nathan's lawyer tried to object several times, but the judge overruled him. Nathan's letter blaming his younger brother for ruining his life makes me wonder what reality he's been living in this whole time. Does he actually believe his own story, or is this just another manipulation tactic? The evidence was too well documented, too thoroughly verified. I watched Nathan's face as message after message appeared on the screen, his own words bragging about framing me, mocking how easy it was to fool everyone. His jaw clenched tighter with each revelation. When it came time for witness testimony, the prosecutor called Catherine first. She explained in technical detail how she traced the anonymous accounts, recovered deleted messages, and documented the systematic campaign of harassment. Her testimony was devastating in its precision. Every lie Nathan had told left digital fingerprints, and Catherine had found them all. Sebastian followed, detailing his investigation into the party incident. He'd interviewed dozens of people, collected witness statements, even obtained security footage from nearby businesses. The picture he painted was damning. Nathan's pattern of predatory behavior became impossible to deny. The girl from the party testified via video link, her identity protected. Her voice shook as she recounted that night, but she pressed on with quiet determination. I could see several jury members wiping their eyes as she described waking up confused and terrified, not understanding what had happened to her. Her courage in coming forward after all this time was humbling. My mom's former co-workers testified about finding her using company computers to post defamatory content about me. IT logs showed she'd spent hours during work time managing fake social media accounts, crafting elaborate lies to destroy her own son's reputation. One co-worker mentioned how my mom would laugh while typing particularly cruel posts. The school officials who testified painted a picture of systematic failure. Teachers admitted they'd seen signs but chosen to believe the troubled kid narrative rather than investigate further. The former principal, now facing his own legal troubles, acknowledged that he'd been biased against me from the start, viewing me through the lens of that first false accusation. As witness after witness took the stand, the full scope of what I'd endured became clear. It wasn't just Nathan's cruelty or my mom's enabling, it was an entire system that had failed to protect a child, choosing convenient lies over difficult truths. The weight of it all pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. During a recess, I escaped to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My dad found me there, gripping the sink with white knuckles. He didn't say anything, just stood beside me until my breathing steadied. His presence was enough to remind me I wasn't alone anymore. When court resumed, Nathan's defense began. His lawyer tried to paint him as a confused young man led astray by an overbearing mother, but the strategy fell apart quickly. The evidence was too overwhelming, Nathan's own words too damning. Even his attempt to appear remorseful rang hollow when contrasted with the years of calculated cruelty. My mom's defense was even weaker. Her lawyer argued she'd been trying to protect her favored son, that any mother might do the same. But the prosecutor demolished this narrative with evidence of my mom's active participation. She hadn't just enabled Nathan, she'd been his co-conspirator, teaching him how to lie more effectively, helping him cover his tracks. The moment arrived that I'd been dreading. The prosecutor called me to testify. My legs felt like jelly as I made my way to the witness stand. The bailiff swore me in, and suddenly I was looking out at a sea of faces, all waiting to hear my story. The prosecutor started started with simple questions, establishing facts. Then she asked me to describe the impact of years of false accusations and isolation. I spoke about the confusion of being 7 years old and not understanding why I was being punished for something I didn't do, about losing my gaming console at 11 for a theft I hadn't committed, about watching my entire family turn against me at 14. I described the fear that had become my constant companion, never knowing what I'd be blamed for next, the anxiety that made me physically sick, the way I'd learned to make myself small, invisible, hoping to avoid Nathan's attention. My voice cracked several times, but I pushed through. The defense's cross-examination was brutal. Nathan's lawyer tried to poke holes in my story, suggesting I was exaggerating, that I was the jealous brother seeking revenge, but I had truth on my side. Every accusation he made, I could counter with evidence. Every insinuation fell flat against the mountain of proof my dad and his team had assembled. My mom's lawyer was more subtle, trying to paint me as an ungrateful son turning against his mother. He asked about happy memories, trying to establish that she'd been a good parent. I acknowledged there had been good moments, but they were overshadowed by the deliberate cruelty. A few birthday parties couldn't erase years of psychological abuse. When I finally stepped down from the witness stand, I was exhausted but oddly lighter. I'd spoken my truth in a way I'd never been allowed to before. No one could dismiss me or blame me or twist my words. The facts were on record now, impossible to deny. The closing arguments brought everything full circle. The prosecutor wove together all the testimony and evidence into a devastating narrative. She showed how Nathan's actions had escalated over the years, enabled and encouraged by our mother. How their conspiracy had stolen my childhood, damaged my education, destroyed my relationships. Nathan's lawyer made one last attempt to minimize his client's actions, but it felt hollow. Even he seemed to know it was a lost cause. My mom's lawyer focused on asking for leniency, arguing that she'd already lost her job and reputation. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was asking for mercy she'd never shown her own son. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they filed back in, I could read the verdict on their faces before the foreman even stood. Guilty on all counts for both defendants. Nathan on the assault charges and years of harassment. My mom on conspiracy, cyberstalking, and child abuse. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month and revoked both their bail. I watched as court officers led them away in handcuffs. Nathan looked shell-shocked, as if he couldn't believe consequences had finally caught up with him. My mom wept, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered. Patricia and my dad shielded me as we pushed through the crowd. I had no interest in talking to media, in becoming a public figure. This had always been about getting justice and reclaiming my life, not fame or attention. Back at the apartment, I collapsed on the couch, completely drained. My dad ordered pizza, and we ate in comfortable silence, processing everything that had happened. The trial was over, but I knew the real work of healing was just beginning. Over the following weeks, life took on a strange new rhythm. Without the constant fear of what Nathan might do next, I hardly knew how to exist. I found myself jumping at shadows, waiting for the other shoe to drop. My therapist assured me this was normal, that it would take time to adjust to safety. The sentencing hearing arrived on a bitter February morning. The courtroom was packed again, but the energy was different, calmer, more resolved. Nathan received 8 years for the assault and harassment charges. My mom got 5 years for her role in the conspiracy. Both would have to register as offenders against children upon release. They were allowed to make statements before sentencing. Nathan offered a hollow apology, still trying to minimize his actions. My mom blamed everyone but herself. My dad for turning me against her. The jury for not understanding a mother's love. Even me for not being the son she'd wanted. Neither showed genuine remorse. I was given the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. I prepared remarks with my therapist, but when the moment came, I spoke from the heart. I told them about the boy I might have been if they'd let me, about the relationships lost, the education disrupted, the years of fear and isolation. I said I hoped they'd use their time in prison to understand the harm they'd caused, though I wasn't holding my breath. As they were led away for the last time, I felt empty. Not relieved or vindicated, just hollow. My therapist had warned me about this too. Justice doesn't erase trauma. It just creates space for healing to begin. The extended family reached out more after the sentencing. Some relationships were salvageable, others too damaged by years of choosing Nathan's lies over my truth. I learned to accept both outcomes. My grandmother became a regular presence, determined to make up for lost time. We had quiet lunches where she shared stories about my dad as a child, filling in gaps from the years we lost. My dad and I settled into a new normal. He helped me apply to colleges far from our hometown, places where I could start fresh without the weight of my past. We toured campuses together, imagining futures where I was just another student, not the kid who'd been framed for his brother's crimes. Catherine stayed in touch, offering to teach me about cybersecurity. She said I had a unique perspective on how online harassment worked, that I could help others who'd been targeted. It was strange to think something positive could come from my experience, but the idea of protecting others appealed to me. The girl from the party sent a letter through her advocate, thanking me for standing up to Nathan. She said my courage in coming forward had helped her find her own voice. We began corresponding, 2 survivors supporting each other's healing journey. There was comfort in connecting with someone who truly understood. Spring arrived with acceptance letters from several colleges. I chose a small school 3 states away, far enough to feel like a fresh start, but close enough that my dad could visit. Catherine turned those fake accounts into a digital crime scene photo album. Every nasty message Nathan sent became evidence against him, like he'd been signing his name to his own guilty verdict the whole time. The thought of leaving terrified and excited me in equal measure. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my own path. My dad helped me pack, both of us trying not to get too emotional. He'd given me back more than just a home these past months. He'd given me the chance to discover who I was without Nathan's shadow looming over me. As we loaded boxes into the car, he reminded me that I'd always have a place with him no matter what. The drive to college was long and quiet. I watched familiar landmarks disappear in the rearview mirror, along with the boy who'd been blamed for everything. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. The chance to be just myself, undefined by lies or manipulation. My dad helped me move into the dorm, fussing over whether I had enough supplies, reminding me to call regularly. When it came time for him to leave, we both stood awkwardly by his car, neither wanting to say goodbye. Finally, he pulled me into a fierce hug and whispered that he was proud of me, not for surviving or for being strong, but just for being his son. As his car disappeared around the corner, I stood on the sidewalk of my new life. Students bustled past, heading to orientation events. My roommate would arrive soon. Classes would start Monday. It was all gloriously normal, a gift I'd never thought I'd receive. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a fresh notebook. My therapist had suggested journaling, processing my experiences through writing. But as I held the pen, I realized I didn't want to write about the past anymore. Instead, I wrote about my hopes for the future, the person I wanted to become, the life I wanted to build. For the first time in over a decade, I went to sleep without fear. No more wondering what I'd be blamed for tomorrow. No more walking on eggshells. No more being the family scapegoat. Just a college freshman with homework to do and friends to make and a whole life stretching out ahead. The boy who'd been blamed for the rocks in the gas tank was gone. In his place stood a young man who'd learned the hardest lesson of all. That truth, no matter how long it takes, eventually finds its way to light. And sometimes, that's enough to build a new beginning. What a ride, huh? I've had a blast diving into all these questions with you. Seriously, it's been awesome. Until we meet again, stay curious out there. If you made it to the end, drop a comment. I love reading all your comments.